As George said, I'm here to talk about how to start and manage a disabled hockey program. A little bit about me. I have 3 kids, Ryan, Katie, and Natalie. Those are my 2 girls. Grew up in northern Michigan. Now I live in Hudsonville outside of Grand Rapids. I'm the executive director for the West Michigan Special Hockey Association. We're getting ready to go into our 4th season, and we're up to about 50 kids. We started with 13, and I am anticipating probably 65 players this year, just from kind of the Grand Rapids, Holland, Lansing areas. Last year I was named one of the 2 directors of disabled hockey for MAHA, and I'm also the Michigan rep for the disabled section for USA Hockey. I oversee special hockey, sled hockey, deaf hockey, blind hockey, and warrior hockey. We'll kind of get into a little bit more of that later. I got into disabled hockey for my son Ryan. He was diagnosed with having autism at 19 months old, which is fairly young if you know anything about the spectrum, but we had a lot of warning signs, and you know, I tell everybody he's the coolest kid ever. He fell in love with hockey. We took him to his first game at about 10 months old, and he's just been hooked since he was a baby. It's changed his life. I know that, I know Kim is in the audience, so you know, she sees that with her team. You know, physically, it keeps them moving. A lot of kids don't have the opportunities like normal, regular kids do to stay active. So physically, emotionally, you know, it gives them that boost of confidence that they need. And socially, I mean, we went from having, you know, a very quiet locker room when we walked in at the beginning of the season to, by the end of the year, kids were playing play dates for themselves and begging their parents to plan camping trips and, you know, skating trips and, hey, let's get together and go to open skate. So that's my Ryan up there. Just so fun. He's decided he wants to play goalie now. So I've joined the ranks of goalie mom, apparently. I don't know if oh, there we go. So, you know, with being involved in special hockey, that's kind of where my area of expertise is in terms of running a program. So you'll see kind of more references to that than the other disciplines. But I live in Grand Rapids, and so we are pretty close with the Grand Rapids Griffins. And we have this little girl, Angie, who's in her K-trainer. Angie is great. She is nonverbal. She can't walk on her own, but we were donated this K-trainer, and she gets to get out and skate. The cool thing about Angie is that the only way that you know how much fun she's having is by how loud she screams when she's on the ice. And so the gentleman in this video with her is one of the most prolific fighters in the American Hockey League. He is known as just being, you know, one of the toughest guys out there. And then to see him melt when he sees Angie and he gets to participate. Anyways, the faster you push her around, the louder she screams. And just, you can see her smile from a mile away. And when she walks in, well, not walks into the rink, she uses a walker or her parents bring her in. She just lights up as soon as she walks in, and she's a constant reminder every week of why we do what we do. So when you're thinking about starting a disabled hockey program, you know, you deal with some different issues in starting a new program than you would with a regular program. You know, you have to ask yourself, what are your goals and who can help you? Without a team, it's like any sport. Without a team and without surrounding yourself with the right people, you won't succeed. So you need to kind of gather that team. It's an absolute critical step to making a disabled hockey program get off the ground. Feel free to contact me at any time. If anybody wants my contact information, both mine and Lou's contact information are on the MAHA website. My information's on usahockey.com. So just, you know, if you're thinking about it, let's get together. Let's talk about it. Let's kind of start to lay out a game plan. So kind of exploring kind of your roadmap. You know, hockey is expensive, regardless of how you look at it. And I know most programs don't charge their players to participate. I know a lot of sled programs do, but special hockey, warrior hockey, typically don't. Blind hockey, from my experience, there's typically a nominal fee. And deaf hockey is kind of its own animal because Michigan, the affiliates don't have teams. The districts don't have teams. The teams are kind of governed by AHIHA and the American Hearing Impaired Hockey Association. And so they basically put their own groups together. They host a big week-long hockey camp in the summer in Chicago. But for the rest of the organizations, that money has to come from somewhere. Whether you get ice time donated, whether you get equipment donated, we'll kind of touch on that in a second. There are grants out there. Get a hold of nonprofits in your community and find out where you can go to apply for grants. USA Hockey has grants, MAHA has grants. There's funding out there, you just have to know where to get it. Again, call us if you need help. We will do everything we can to help you get those resources because we want to see you start a program. One thing that we've came across in the last year with West Michigan Special Hockey is we're actually getting reclassified as a health and human services organization rather than a sports organization because we are considered therapeutic and not recreational. And so that's something to consider when you are setting up a disabled hockey program, is that it is therapeutic. Sled hockey is, again, kind of its own little monster in that way because they do compete for national championships. But if you have the opportunity to set up as a health and human services organization, do so because it opens the door to a lot of extra funding. Who are your players? Where are you going to get them from? Who are you going to reach out to? Who are you going to put in your network? In Grand Rapids, we work very closely with the different special needs organizations. The Grand Rapids Sled Wings work with the Mary Free Bed Rehab Hospital, which is one of the top rehabilitation organizations basically in the world. Who are you, write this down. Who are you going to go to for your players? How are you going to get the word out? That's key because without players, you won't have a program. Reach out to your local districts and associations. A lot of our players in West Michigan Special Hockey they have siblings who play regular hockey. They have siblings who play for GRAHA. They have siblings who play for the Blades. And maybe they did play for a while, but especially with kids on the spectrum, at a certain point they get to a point where they can no longer keep up, whether it's they can't make their brains work quick enough to make those decisions like they need to, or physically they can't keep up. And so that's why we're here. Make friends with your districts, make friends with your different associations. Ann Goodman is here from the Grand Rapids Hawk Association, and her husband reached out to me 2 years ago now and said, hey, we want to have a fundraiser for special hockey. Great. Again, we don't charge our players to play. Funding for ice time, uniforms, everything else has to come from somewhere. In my personal experience, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, we want to do fundraisers. And nothing ever really comes out of it. Ann and her husband stayed on me long enough that we put it together. And now we have a pretty good partnership with their association. They've kind of taken all of our players under their wings. And my son actually is playing mite hockey with them this season. So, another thing Hawk did for us is they had an equipment drive. And that's something, again, reach out to your associations. A lot of special needs families, whether it's, special hockey players or even our warrior players, our blind hockey players, our families have a lot of extra medical expenses. Our insurance gets billed, kind of on a personal note, our insurance gets billed about $1,200 a week for my son's therapy. And he's considered high functioning. $1,200 a week. Thankfully, once we had our deductible, we're good. But keep that in mind when you're planning for your association. Hockey is not inexpensive, and that equipment and that support has to come from somewhere. So let's make it as easy on our families as we possibly can.
Right now, hockey is life. And we're on the ice maybe twice a week. I just fell in love with it.
Athletes that play sled hockey tell me that they love the feeling on the ice. They feel as though they're flying.
It's liberating. It's just you and your teammates, and everything else is just tuned out.
That never say die attitude. Lose your balance, you intend to fight it. Gotta get back up and start pushing.
Playing hockey definitely inspired inspires other people. It makes them get out of their comfort zone. You can learn really valuable things like teamwork to being independent.
It's fast, it's intense, and you can just tell the people playing have just as much passion as the stand-up hockey players do. It's just a really great sport for disabled athletes to be able to play.
Sled hockey is for people with disabilities, mostly physical, some cognitive issues, but people with disabilities are playing in sleds sitting down with 2 sticks as opposed to 1. On the butt ends of the sticks are metal picks. They use those metal picks to propel the sled forward. And on the other end of the sticks are the curvature for shooting and passing. The teams are all across the country, from Alaska to Florida. Anybody that has a disability and wants to play hockey, we could find a way to make it happen.
When I see these sleds out here, after 5 years of pushing, I just don't see the game really any differently than an able-bodied game. Just they're on sleds, not on legs.
It makes you feel normal again. When you're out there going 100 miles an hour and you're just being a man again, I guess. For me, it's being a man again.
I felt special because I got a goal for my team, and that's important.
But the biggest thing is that we're all there and we're in it together, everywhere from the developmental, the youth, to the older and the elite.
I feel that USA Hockey is the backbone of sled hockey. Sled hockey would be in the world what it is today.
You're free, you're able to fly out there. The feeling you get on and off the ice with your teammates is something that you just want to keep getting more of.
If anybody wants these videos afterwards, they're kind of good explanations about the different disciplines that we offer in disabled hockey. Now another, another resource, this Michigan UP sled hockey video, it's a video that USA Hockey has. And all you have to do for special hockey and for sled hockey is contact USA Hockey, get a hold of me, send me your association's logo, and we will edit the video so that your association contact information is at the end of the video. We did one for Flint earlier for Jeff for sled hockey, and it's a great video. Great to use on websites, on social media, on any sort of promotional materials. Execution. So here's where we get into staffing. Again, my experience primarily comes from special hockey. In special hockey, we have to be prepared to have enough staff to go one-on-one if needed. So that means a lot of people on the ice, and you really have to be able to manage that. So you need a coaching director or a head coach who has the experience to do that. We do a lot of small area games because that way we can cycle kids around the ice. They're constantly moving. If you don't give them the opportunity to constantly move, you're going to lose them. They just are going to either be off talking to their parents, they're going to be banging their helmets on the ice, they're going to, or on the glass to try to communicate with their parents. They're going to be doing anything except for paying attention to hockey. So if we can keep them active and involved for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever your ice time is, that coach you have to have somebody constantly moving around the ice to kind of head off any problems. So at least one coach, this is where we start to get into some differences. With USA Hockey, at least one coach needs to be a level 1 or higher. Not all of your coaches need to be trained. One thing that that I'm moving to implement is I would like to see all of our coaches be a level 1. Level 1 is a great kind of coaching 101, and I think it applies all the way across the board, no matter what discipline you are. Now the other thing is that last summer we created a disabled hockey coaching course through the CEP program that we'll be offering in the fall. I went out to Connecticut and we helped create that. There's I think 6 or 8 of us across the country who are able to instruct that course. So we'll be rolling that out. I'm hoping September, kind of depending on scheduling. And the other thing is that all of our coaches need to complete the disabled module. I will say the disabled module, as it stands right now, focuses primarily on sled hockey. There's not a whole lot that we can do about that at this point. We're working on it. That is something that the disabled coaching section is working on diligently. Because I think that, especially with special hockey, there's a lot of adjustments that you need to make, and you have to be kind of quicker on your feet. I recommend that every program assigns a program manager, whether it's an executive director or a team manager or somebody just who is that single point of contact. It could be your head coach starting out. Maybe it's a parent who has some sort of team management experience. That's how I got roped into it. I came from motorsports background where I ran multi-million-dollar sports teams, race teams, and so that's kind of how I got roped in. Volunteers, again, especially with special hockey, you have to be prepared to go one-on-one. Blind hockey, you have to be prepared to go one-on-one. Sled hockey, again, is kind of a different animal, but your staff has to be comfortable with sled hockey. And again, Jeff and Flint has done a great job of running very regular and constant tri-hockey events. There is a sled lending program available. If you want to run a tri-hockey event for sled hockey, get a hold of me. We'll get you guys sleds. They deliver them. You put them together. You take them apart at the end of the weekend, put them back in the box. They pick them up. But there is a sled lending program out there to assist in starting new sled hockey programs. Again, background checks, safe sport. All of our volunteers, regardless of if you're a coach or not, especially in special hockey, it becomes very critical. The cognitive abilities and levels of our players vary. Kim knows we go from the highest of functioning that you would never suspect that they have any issues until they have an issue, to kids who are completely nonverbal. But it's amazing when you get them on the ice. Kind of a side note, nearly every single one of my parents has said to me, my kid cannot skate. My kid will never be able to skate. And I tell them to give me a month. But if you take a child with autism and you think about it, hockey is a very noisy sport. It's a cold arena, especially in the fall and the spring. You come in, it's very hot outside. You come inside and it's cold. A lot of kids running around. And then we put all of this foreign feeling equipment on you. And then the kicker is usually in the helmet. We put a snug helmet on you with a cage on it and strap you into it. To a child who's never had that before, it's pretty scary. And then we put a really tight shoe on you that has this thin little metal blade on the bottom of it. And we put you on a surface that, as a parent, I know that I always tell my kids, be careful, it's slippery. And we say, get out there and skate. But they do it. They figure it out, and that's one of the coolest things ever. But you have to be prepared for when we put the helmet on. Your volunteers need to know, that it's going to be a different sensation for them, and how do we handle that? How do we work through that? Same thing with the gear. How do we explain to a child with autism or with some other cognitive disability that, hey, we're going to strap these things on your legs that are going to make it so it doesn't hurt when you fall. But then they're terrified of falling, and so until they do it the first time, then they don't know that it won't hurt. So it's kind of, you kind of have to look at it a lot differently than you do trying to get a new neurotypical hockey player on the ice. So you have to be ready with your volunteers. I always run a parent orientation the week before our first practice, and then after that we run a quick volunteer coaching orientation where we just kind of, I look at my roster and I always ask my families, what are your child's issues? How can we help them? I try to talk to all of our parents and get to know them and get to know their kids so that when I have a player who escapes out of the back gate of the rink and manages to get outside in his hockey skates and running through a field, I know who I can send after him to go get him and what we need to do to bring him back in safely and keep him safe. And that's the key, is we have to keep everybody on the ice safe. Again, as a volunteer, it's the same thing. There's no cost to register, but you do have to go through Safe Sport and you do have to be screened. I don't let anybody in my locker rooms, again, probably the same as regular hockey. I don't let anybody in my locker rooms unless they have a player in there, a child. They don't get to go in my locker room unless I know that they've been screened and safe sported. I have one person that oversees all of that for me. On the ice, we need strong skaters. A lot of these kids are big, and once they figure out how to move, that's a lot of inertia that's going around. And especially if they start to have a meltdown, you have to have, I'll touch on it on another slide, but you need to have bigger, stronger skaters that can help kind of maneuver them around the ice and either put them in the penalty box, which we do, or remove them from the ice. So you have to be prepared to have kind of those, who that you can go to for different situations. We reach out to local teams and associations on a regular basis. I really like working with the local college programs a lot. We've partnered the last 2 years with D2 teams, and they get to know our kids, and that's great. And we practice on Sundays. So Sundays typically are off days. They may be traveling back from a game, but and that goes for blind hockey is the exact same way. I had a chance last year to there's a special set of goggles that you can get that mimics the top 8 vision loss diseases and syndromes. And I'm not the greatest of skaters anyways, but when you put on a pair of goggles that lets you see a pinpoint, and that's all the light, that's all the input that you're getting, the sensation of skating is completely different. You have no idea where you're at on the ice. You have no idea, how to even take that first step on the ice. So, to have skaters like that out there, you need to have the staff. And that's one thing that we've been very fortunate with is we have a pretty decent sized staff. So your needs, obviously you need players. Again, how are you going to get these players? Where are you going to find them? If you are starting a blind hockey program, reach out to your vision impaired schools. I know Western Michigan University has a really good teaching education program for those going into teaching students who are visually impaired. And so they host the blind sports camp every year that I was invited down to this year, and we hosted a really good Try Hockey for Free event down there. During the camp, I had 16 skaters come out who had never had the chance to be on the ice since they lost their vision. So some of them had never skated before. And then I had 4 skaters who had played hockey. One had played through Bantam, and he lost his vision over the course of about a year and had to quit playing hockey. And so now we're giving him a chance to play. And he said it was life-changing. So again, where do you get your players from? And how do you get them? How do you approach them? That's kind of been one of the areas that I've struggled in running a special hockey program is how do you have that conversation with a parent? How do you say, hey, it appears that your child has special needs. Why don't you bring them out to play hockey? Well, some parents don't want to hear that, whether their child is profoundly special needs or not. Sometimes they don't care to hear that. But I've gotten a lot of our players that way. It's just, that's a hard fine line to walk. Parents, we struggle here with West Michigan Special Hockey, and I know that a lot of other disciplines do as well. Again, we don't charge anything to come and play. We ask them to pay their USA Hockey registration costs. If they can't, then our organization covers that for them. Because sometimes that $45 really could make or break a family's budget. And so a problem that we run into is that there's no buy-in. So there's no ownership in the program from the families. And we have a lot of families who just expect a lot and don't ever give back. And so we, as a board, that's created a lot of work. And so that's something that you have to be prepared for, is that you won't get that buy-in from the families. You won't get the time, the volunteer buy-in, without coming up with some sort of program for that. We ran into a situation 2 years ago. We played in a special needs hockey tournament in Toledo, and I had 16 kids sign up. So our organization paid the $350 registration fee, or whatever it ended up being, and we ended up with 6 kids attending that tournament because there was no reason. It was so easy for a family to say, all right, we're just not going to go. And so what we've started, and this may be, I don't know if anybody else has done it, we've created a travel team. And so this travel team, again, it's not based on ability at all. It's based on, who wants to sign up for it. There's a very nominal charge for that travel team. We have a company that donates our jerseys, but we only have dark jerseys. And so part of this fee is it'll come with a light colored jersey. We're going to get them, track suits, warm-up suits, so that they really feel important and feel like a big hockey team. And then that'll also cover their tournament registration costs. Last year we asked families to pay $10 a tournament whenever we had to pay a registration fee. And that helped a little bit, but $10 hits the wallet harder for some than most, but not enough across the board generally. So we kind of still ran into the same issues. But the travel team, we already have 10 kids signed up for it. So we figure we'll have those 10 kids. We've promised them a game or a tournament once a month. And we know that we'll get extra kids for different events. So that gives us that buy-in that we need from the parents to get that commitment. Again, it's kind of the same as any other hockey. We need active, positive, supportive, and encouraging. But what's different is that if I were to be sitting in the grandstands watching my son play, I'm going to cheer just as hard for a goal on the other player's team as I do my own. Our very first tournament that we went to was in Toledo, and we were playing Kim's team. And probably my favorite picture that anybody's ever taken of me is I was helping one of her players score a goal. I think it was a little girl, right, with the walker, with the little, she has like a little plow on the front of her walker, and she hadn't touched the puck at all. And so I had an opportunity to kind of scoot the puck over to her, and we painstakingly took us a few minutes to skate down the ice, but we got down the ice, and that's one thing we have to teach our goalies, is when you kind of get the nod from your coach, you kind of back off and you make it look good. You make this, you make the attempt at a save look good, but you let that player score. So that's, again, something a little bit different in a non-competitive division of disabled hockey. But to get the parents to understand that is kind of difficult, especially if they have a player who plays on a regular hockey team. To get them to cheer for the other team is interesting. You need to you need a fundraising team or committee. Again, hockey is expensive. So I feel like I walk around like this a lot. Blind hockey, the pucks are about $50 a piece. I was going to bring one and I forgot it, but they're about this big, they're steel, and they're full of ball bearings. And so it's about the 7th iteration of a blind hockey puck that we've gone through at USA Hockey, but we've tried pucks with beepers in them, but the beepers freeze up, or they just aren't durable enough to get pounded on for 3 periods of hockey. So, it's expensive. Equipment's expensive. So again, equipment drives. Going to your local rinks and your districts and your associations and asking them to donate ice is huge. We pay for ice in Grand Rapids, but we fortunately have gotten a little bit of a discount, so that helps a little bit. But you're still paying a good amount of money for ice, which is tough when you don't have registration fees coming in. And just the financial outlay for different things. You realize that you're short on helmets and you need to go purchase a helmet for a player. The most inexpensive helmets out there are still $100+. And so you're looking at, needing to do stuff like that on occasion. So that's all stuff to keep in mind. So again, identifying people around you who are willing to help with fundraising and getting you the stuff that you need. Again, one person can't do it all. And I'm finding that if you start out trying to do it all, then people expect you to do it all. So you have to, as an association or as a district, you have to start putting that team together of people who can help you with that. Try hockey events are a great way to introduce the sport of hockey to new players. Yes, it's that way in regular hockey, but it's that way in disabled hockey as well. Special hockey, a lot of times we'll start out and give the players the option to not even go on the ice. We will have an event in a gym. We're finding that's a really good way. Chicago's kind of been the pioneer of that. You get a high school gym for the day, and you give the kids a stick and a ball and let them go out and kind of get used to holding a stick and get used to basically having a weapon in their hands and teaching them, how to manage that. Your sled hockey, again, sled lending program. Excuse me. You need people who are comfortable with strapping players into sleds and helping them in and out of the sleds, on and off the ice. We're fortunate that Plymouth has the ability to put in special sled boards, which are very interesting. I had a chance to go and watch our national sled development team practice in Plymouth earlier this year, and they were testing out the new sled boards. So your bench has to be completely flush with the ice. Right now, like currently, normal sled hockey games, you'll see the players on the ice at all times. They just kind of sit in front of the boards, but that creates almost a hazard when they're trying to move the puck on that side of the rink. And so with the sled boards, they're clear, and the players can still communicate. They're lower so that the players can still talk to their teammates just like you would in regular hockey. But they can get on and off, and then there's synthetic ice in place of where the flooring would normally be. So that's another adaptation that we've made, to accommodate our sled hockey players. Blind hockey, the nets are only 3 feet tall. They're as wide as a standard net, but they're only 3 feet tall. And so that's something that, a player who was formerly sighted, who has then lost his or her vision, that's an adaptation for them that they have to kind of get used to it. One cool thing about blind hockey is the goalies are 100% blind. Think about that for a second. As a goalie, you are 100% blind. And what they do is when the puck crosses the blue line, you have to complete a pass before you can take a shot on net. And once that pass is completed, the ref has a beeper that they will then hold down so that the goalie knows to be listening for where the puck is at. Just the first time I went to a blind hockey event, I was just mind blown. Some of the players out there, you would never know that they were blind. But they got around, they played great. The goalies made some amazing saves, which again, zero vision. And if they had any vision at all, they had to wear goggles or a mask. So, just again, more adaptations. What we did at the Western Michigan blind hockey event was I took wiffle balls, and I took a little razor and I cut, like an X-Acto knife, I cut just a slit and then I shoved it full of jingle bells. And so before we even put them on the ice, we put them in a room with jingle bells and hockey sticks and got them used to listening for where that puck would be around them before we even got them out there. And then once we got them out there, it was a lot easier for them and they were a lot more comfortable hearing that noise and knowing that that's where they needed to focus. Again, I am a big advocate of partnering with a local team. Again, college teams are your best option. High school teams, you want bigger players, stronger skaters on all sorts of levels. You'll have some A-level. So in special hockey, we classify our players as A, B, and C. A is very high functioning. There's some teams in the Detroit area that play men's league hockey with their A-level special hockey players. B is kind of where most of our players lie, kind of an intermediate skill level. They can follow direction. They don't necessarily need to be one-on-one. Typically with my B team, we'll have 5 or 6 coaches to about 15 players, and that tends to be a pretty good ratio. Blind hockey, again, you have to be ready to go one-on-one. And so you need, your sense of balance is off, especially for somebody who's recently lost their vision. And so you have to, again, be strong enough that you can help a player who could be bigger than you around the ice. Sled hockey, again, a little bit different. It's a competitive division. I don't talk a whole lot about warrior hockey. A lot of our warrior players are mostly like traumatic brain injury and PTSD, so you're not seeing a ton of profound injuries that would prevent them from playing a lot of regular hockey. So you don't really need that support. They have coaches, they have a skating coach that comes out and helps them. So you won't hear me talk a whole lot about that when it comes to support. But it's just, special hockey, blind hockey are the big ones. We schedule games with our local neurotypical teams. You know, the Hawks, for example, you know, we take and we split their team up and we split our team up. We mix them all up and split the benches up. And the Hawk kids are great because they basically pick a buddy and they stick with that kid the entire game, and they're talking to him and they're, you know, getting to know him, and you know, that makes our players feel important, and it's teaching life lesson after life lesson to the association that's out there helping us. One thing that I like to do is I'll go in, I do preseason meetings with a team that's committed to help us all season. I do pre-practice or pre-game meetings with teams that we're playing, and you know, it gives them a safe place to ask questions and not feel silly. A lot of our kids have not had exposure to kids with special needs. And so you have to give them a place to ask questions and feel comfortable so that they go out there and they're relaxed and they have fun and they make our special hockey players feel supported. Same thing with blind hockey players. You have to give your volunteers a safe place to ask questions where they don't have to feel concerned about hurting somebody's feelings by asking the wrong question or asking it the wrong way. So I find that that's a really good way to start out a game with a neurotypical organization.
I was in Iraq 2006 to 2008. I sustained a traumatic brain injury. I also suffer from PTSD.
I served in Afghanistan in 2012, where I was wounded during attack. Returning to civilian life was a big challenge in that I didn't know where I was going to go. I've been working for so many years, and then all of a sudden it's doctor's appointments, physical therapy, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I couldn't really do anything with my family. I have a daughter. It just became, what was my purpose and goal in life?
I injured my back in Afghanistan. My physical therapist told me to pick up a sport, and she said you need to get out of the house and basically not feel sorry for yourself. So I decided to pick hockey. The fast-paced action, the intensity of it, the brotherhood, I realized that that felt very similar to being in a military unit in a company. I thought to myself, there needs to be a program for veterans to play hockey together. I looked around and there wasn't one. I took that as a challenge to start one myself.
The Metro Detroit Chevy dealers chose to support the Warriors hockey program for a couple different reasons. Veterans, they come back and sometimes there's not that job waiting, sometimes there's not a family waiting. And so why not spend some extra time and effort giving back to the people that have given us an opportunity to live with the freedoms that we have.
This hockey program has helped me so much. I started off in a wheelchair, and because of this program, just being able to continue to physically and mentally push myself, I now spend less time in that wheelchair. The big thing about the Warriors program is we're all disabled veterans. We can help each other heal and change the lives of so many veterans that need it.
The Metro Detroit Chevy dealers come in and they've taken a huge, incredible burden off of us by giving us this donation. Thank you isn't enough for what they've done, because without this program, I don't know where I'd be. As you know, the suicide rates are high. Without this ice, unfortunately, some of these guys might not be here. Thank you for saving our program.
So dividing our disciplines up a little bit. Special hockey, I touched on it. We divide our teams up by ability level. And so a lot of our tournaments will be BC level tournaments, which means that I'll be out on the ice. It's rare that I'll have a team there where I'm not out on the ice. And our kids kind of expect that. They know that they have that encouragement, that help if they need it. Scorekeeping, typically when team A scores a goal, both teams will get a goal put on the board. Or say one team's up 3-1, you'll look over at the scoreboard a few minutes later and the score will be tied. So it's not about winning and losing, and the kids appreciate that because they feel like they're winning, rather, whether they're actually scoring goals out there or not. I've actually had a couple of players who struggle with that a little bit because they want to go out and win, but for the most part, it works pretty well. Again, coaches out on the ice, the refs, our referees are typically coaches, and so we talk to them before the game. We've had a couple of new refs come out, and we just say, hey, we don't really call penalties, we don't call offsides, we don't call icing, we don't really do any of that. We just let them go out and play. We try to keep it moving. We don't do a lot of face-offs. Now, again, at the A level, it's a little bit different. They want to play competitive hockey. They want to know who wins and loses and who scores what goals. So, again, a lot of it's based on ability level. At Disabled Hockey Festival in San Jose, which is our flagship event, every special hockey team brought home a championship banner. Think about that for a second. Every team that went out to San Jose had the chance to bring a banner home that they get to hang up in their rink. And that's pretty cool to them. They thought that was about the neatest thing ever. Now, one thing you have to be prepared for, and whoever's on the ice has to be prepared for any sort of meltdown, or we had a player out in San Jose who was a goalie, and within about 2 minutes of the game starting, he had a goal scored on him. And it resulted in about a 12-minute long meltdown. It took 7 adults 10 minutes to get him de-escalated enough that we could get him off of the ice. So we basically shut down that half of the rink. They played down at the other end, and that part of it worked. But you have to be fluid and willing to kind of make changes on the fly like that. Obviously our number one priority is keeping everybody on the ice safe. And that's when you have kids with special needs out there, you have to be prepared and on your toes for any sort of situation that could come up. Sled hockey, a lot of the rules are the same. You'll use regular officials to ref the games. A couple of different rules are T-boning. T-boning is a big no-no, ramming, all of that's a big no-no in sled hockey. So that's, as a sled hockey coach, if you have an official come up who has never worked a sled game, then it's a quick 5-minute chat with them before the game, and there's modules again. I think that they're putting modules on the referee program that will allow them to kind of get a little bit of education before going out there. I talked about blind hockey already. Every blind hockey athlete is classified according to their vision level. You won't see any athlete out there playing blind hockey who has more than 10% vision. And I was fortunate enough to get a chance to be a part of the vision classification process in Canada during the International Blind Hockey Tournament this year, and it was amazing. It really, to realize how little vision they have and they're out there playing hockey is so much fun. Deaf, hard of hearing, same thing, regular rules. The Deaf Olympics are pretty amazing. Warriors, the same thing. All the same rules as regular hockey. They'll eject guys all day long if they need to. So it's, a lot of those guys will play men's league hockey when they don't have warrior events going on. Oh, this video will work. This is Kim's daughter, Kat. She was one of our coaches the first couple of years while we still had her in Grand Rapids. This was a video that we had a PR firm do for us a couple years ago, but it's kind of a good insight into special hockey. Let's see if it'll actually play.
It's amazing, the smiles. They smile the whole time they're on the ice, the whole time before, the whole time after. They're always wanting to get out there, and they're asking, oh, is it time yet? Is it time yet?
These kids are gung-ho, ready to go, want to get into a game.
He just loves being there with everybody, and the feeling of being in the locker room and putting on the equipment and cheering for everybody.
The level of excitement way exceeds my expectations. The level of advancement and how fast, just from them being on the ice with minimal instruction, because we were all still trying to figure out what we were going to do once we got on the ice, really happened really quick. Within 2 weeks, we were noticing that the ability was lifted, the bar was raised. Already in 2 weeks with very little instruction, just some of these players had never been on the ice at all. Many of their brothers and sisters have played hockey, and now it's their chance to have their own team.
For years, Theo has been on many sidelines and watching sports, asking when he's going to get a chance to play. When the opportunity arose, we jumped at it.
One of our goals also is to kind of teach some aspects of independence, and that's really a big thing, to have them be independent where they can get their equipment on themselves, getting on their jerseys, getting on their elbow pads. Not only is it for our special needs group, but we do bring in a youth group that helps with the planning and the implementation of it. So showing that you can include maybe kids with different abilities, different cognitive abilities, different disabilities in the same arena really is something that we're hoping for. That aspect of inclusion is really our main goal here.
It's really good for his brother and the other siblings. Tonight we had a lot of fans here, a lot of student fans. I think it's really good for all of those kids to come out and cheer and kind of see it from another side and maybe a different level of competitiveness.
These kids bring something new every week for me to learn. I'm going to be a teacher, so one of my philosophies is that you can never learn too much. And I think these kids have taught me a lot about how they can socialize just like any other kid. They want to play hockey just like any other kid. They want to learn how to skate just like any other kid. They've also taught me, how enthusiastic these kids can be about hockey.
I don't necessarily see it as much about the athletics as it is about giving the kids a community and a peer group and the feeling of being a part of a team. My son Theo is not the fastest skater or the best goal scorer yet, but he's having the greatest time and he's the biggest cheerleader, and it's just fun for him to be a part of the camaraderie of the locker room and the fans and the spirit.
I want to thank all of our volunteers, all of our parents, everybody. Really, we started the program and really quickly went to our parents and turned it over to them to make it sustainable. And really the reason we're still here and able to do things is because of the volunteerism and then the donations from all the people who donated monetarily that helped pay for the ice.
To see their excitement gets me fired up and gets me motivated to really give my all to these kids, because they give their all to me. They want to come out every week. They want to learn hockey. They want to learn how to skate. And if they're going to give me 100%, I want to give them 150%.
So resources. Again, disabled directors. Lou and I are both available. I'm the rep for MAHA to USA Hockey for disabled hockey. So if you guys need any resources from USA Hockey, give me a call. Anything locally, you can call either Lou or I. The Advanced Disabled Coaching Workshop Weekend. If you are starting a program, I would highly, highly recommend that you send a coach down to this workshop. If they are level 1 or higher, they will advance a coaching level after the weekend. They won't go from 4 to 5, but they'll go up to level 4. A great 2-day workshop. Last year we had an advanced special hockey workshop and an advanced sled hockey workshop, and then we had kind of association workshops outside of that all weekend long. So great weekend. Would highly, highly recommend sending a coach down to that. This year it's in Columbus at Nationwide. Last year it was in Nashville. And a really good and educational weekend. Every discipline within USA Hockey has its own rep. So there is a special hockey rep. There is a warrior hockey rep, blind hockey rep, deaf, hard of hearing hockey rep, sled hockey rep. So if I don't have answers, I can either direct you towards those representatives or we'll figure it out. Blind Hockey Summit, again, if we're looking in the state of Michigan, we're looking for somebody to take the reins on starting a blind hockey program in Southeast Michigan. So if anybody is interested, please, please, please get a hold of me. Blind Hockey Summit is the first full weekend in October in Pittsburgh this year. And a lot of on ice, a lot of off ice education, coaching training, association training. How do you start a program? How do you start a blind program? How do we make it go? Disabled modules are on the USA Hockey website. Again, they focus primarily on sled hockey, but do touch on all of the other disciplines as well. Final thoughts, and I'll open it up for some questions. You're changing lives out there. There's a reason that our practices are my favorite 2 hours of my week, no matter what. No matter how bad of a day I'm having, how bad of a week, I can go to special hockey and realize that things really aren't that bad. You're helping our players, and regardless of what discipline you're in, you're helping them to integrate into society a little bit better, and you're giving them a fun outlet to be social and be active and have fun. You're changing the lives of your volunteers. I mean, I've not ever had a volunteer quit. They come back, and we just keep growing our volunteer list every year because it's in all disciplines across the board. It's life-changing. You're creating awareness in the community, both with hockey people and non-hockey people, and that's a key. You're teaching people how to include our special needs community, whether it's in school or at a hockey game somewhere or at an open skate, and that's all big because you're changing lives and making a difference. I went to Northwood University and I worked for the football team, and sadly we lost our coach that I worked for a couple of years ago, but he had a saying: go mad. Go make a difference. Every single day of your life, wake up and figure out one way that you can make a difference. And that's easy to do in disabled hockey. It's easy to do when you're part of a program. Just a couple of other things. My ability is stronger than my disability. And that becomes apparent out on the ice. These kids figure it out, and they're in an environment that kind of neutralizes a lot of things. And you see that ability. And then, see my ability, encourage my participation, and count me in, instead of see my disability, discourage my participation, or discount me. Count them in, give them a place to play hockey. Whether they're blind, whether they're deaf, whether they're a special needs hockey player, whether they're a sled hockey player, give them a place to get out on the ice. And if you ever get a chance, get in a sled. I would highly recommend it to anybody who's thinking about starting a sled hockey program. Get in a sled. Kim, have you been in a sled?
I've sat in one, but I have not been on the ice in one.
Jeff, have you? You have? It's a completely different, I really felt like almost like a failure out there because it takes just a completely different kind of strength, and
it's hard.
It's hard, and I couldn't move my arms the next day. And kind of a funny story, we were in Nashville, and our conference was hosted at the Preds practice facility at Ford Ice. And there's a big concourse between two rinks, just like a lot of rinks. And these 8 or 9 guys walked in, and they were all wearing navy blue. And I was like, hey, look, it's like the Preds are coming in probably for practice. Big, strong guys. And I realized it was our national sled team. If you look at our national sled team, they are more built than most NHL players I know. And it's a testament to the kind and the amount of strength that it takes to play sled hockey and be successful. Questions?
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
One of the things that when you're working with a disabled team, a special team, you need to make sure your kids have to have the same types of rules and format that any able-bodied team is. You have team rules. You have team expectations. If my kids are able to carry their own bags in, they carry their own bags in. We give them notes. We give them a sheet. Lay your equipment out every day before you get there like this, so you know that you've got your equipment. It's not your parents' responsibility to have your equipment. If they're able to make those decisions, we make them have that. We have discipline rules, just like an able-bodied team. So one of the first time I got on the ice of a disabled team, I was scared crapless. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna hurt somebody, what's gonna happen? No clue. And I found out very quickly that my background as a coach was much more applicable to coaching a disabled team than being one of my other coaches is a doctor at Mott's Children's Hospital, and she works with these kids. Much more appropriate than I thought than her skills were, because we're a hockey team. We have expectations like a team, we like to win, but we are, as Marie pointed out, we are as encouraging, if not more encouraging, to the other players. We recognize kids with less skills need to have that encouragement. And when you teach that to any kid, whether they're able-bodied or disabled, and you teach them to have empathy, and to understand that the spirit of teamwork is very appropriate, and you see one of your players helping another player along on the other team so that they can score, then you know you've succeeded as a coach. So if you are having any hesitation about starting, and again, I can talk to special needs because that's what I've been doing for I think we're in our 9th year now. If you have any apprehension or worry about starting a disabled team because you're worried about the coaching aspect, don't be. Give me, and I'd be happy, as Marie offered, Jackie Kaufman, who's the other coach with me, we'd love to come out and help you out. We had a lot, when we first started, we had coaches from the Mork Stars and from the Far Flyers, who are teams in our area, come out and help us too and give us some hints and stuff, and it was great. So we'd love to come out and skate with your kids too. We think it's great. You will never have a more rewarding experience, and those kids will teach you something. Every day you are on the ice, they are going to teach you something, and it's the coolest thing. So
I think maybe this will work. This is just a short 18-second video of Joel Recklich and Angie skating. So you can't hear her shrieking, but what you can see is this big bad hockey enforcer absolutely melting when he gets to skate with her. Those guys would fight over who got to skate with those players. And it's just amazing. We've since taken Hello Kitty duct tape, and we have duct taped a stick to her K-trainer. Sorry, that video, my son was asked to throw an octopus out on the ice during the Griffins playoff run this year. We had to practice with a stuffed animal inside of a backpack before we went out there to make sure that he could do it. But again, the sensory issues of picking up a slimy, smelly octopus to throw it out on the ice was an interesting one. But he thought it was his job as a member of the Griffins, which they've told him he is. So that was a fun day. But if anybody wants me to send them links to these videos, I can. It's just kind of a good reminder of why we do what we do and why we should do more. So anyone with any more? Yep.
Maria, excuse me, I want to add this little anecdote. When the past disabled director, Carol Schwanger, was hosting a festival down in Fraser a couple of summers ago, I had the opportunity, and some of the District 2 folks in here have heard me share the story, but I had the opportunity to skate with the blind hockey with Matt Morrow. And I gotta tell you guys, I think one of the most, first of all, the most impressive thing I would have never thought about was actually holding a man's hand going to the ice, because he didn't know how to get, he couldn't see how to get there. And you talk about taking some things for granted. And the other thing I think a lot of us get caught up in is a lot of the negatives that we deal with able-bodied hockey. When you go sit in that setting to watch the sled players or disabled players or blind players, these are people that are doing it because they get an opportunity to play the sport that we so-called love. So what I think is absolutely the most impressive part is watching the people in the stands cheer just for the fact that the sheer fact that they're on the ice, and it's about nothing else other than being given that opportunity. So I encourage, as Marie and Lou do, I encourage everybody, if you have an opportunity to take part in this, I mean, probably one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in the time I've been involved here with the coaching education program and whatnot. So I just thought I'd share that with you because it was pretty remarkable.
I love it when I get a local youth hockey team that comes to me and says, hey, can we come and help out at a practice? Because what I think that means for us is that maybe next week at school in the cafeteria, those boys that play hockey are going to reach out to the little boy that sits across the room that maybe has Down syndrome or that has autism and say, hey, will you come and sit with us? Or maybe that one player is going to go and sit with that boy at lunch or that girl at lunch and say, hey, come and hang out with us, come and have lunch with us. Or, you know, maybe it's going to prevent bullying, or, you know, there's so many aspects to it. It's just, you know, we're changing lives, and that's the coolest part about disabled hockey is every single day, regardless of what discipline, we're changing lives out there. And so I really would like to see, you know, all of our districts start to kind of step up and let's get some disabled hockey programs started. You know, I really want Michigan to be in the forefront of the disabled hockey community. And so, you know, Lou and I are both here to kind of help you guys make that happen. Any other questions? I know I'm cutting into lunchtime by 3 minutes. Are we good?